Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's devotion. We're in Revelation 17 and 18 today, quite a long passage. It's the story of Babylon the prostitute. It's not my favorite passage. If I had a choice, I wouldn't look at this passage, but it is in God's word, and it takes 2 whole chapters of the book of Revelation. And so let's see what we can get out of it today. What was Babylon? Or who was Babylon? I think the answer is quite simply, Babylon is the city, any city, almost certainly represented by the cities where the 7 churches that were the original recipients of this book, where they were. The book was written to the 7 churches in the 7 cities of Asia Minor. And so it's a reference to any city, and would be a reference to your city and my city too. Babylon, of course, was a great city. It was great and powerful and full of splendor. It did great harm to God's people. Babylon was the city whose army destroyed the city of Jerusalem. It was the army that destroyed God's temple. And Babylon sent God's people out of God's land and into exile. Babylon was where godly people like Daniel tried to serve, and in some ways very successfully, but not without difficulties and troubles. And for Daniel, that meant at one stage being thrown into the lion's den for his prayer and worship of God. In this passage, Revelation 17 and 18, Babylon definitely represents Rome. Verse 9, and the reference to the 7 hills gives that away. Rome, ancient Rome, was known as the city built on the 7 hills. Rome, all-powerful, much more powerful than Babylon had ever been. Almighty, incredible splendor, incredible wealth, incredible opulence, and awful immorality, and all too often against God's people. Verse 6 is a horrific verse, drunk with the blood of God's people. And that certainly applied to Rome. During the days of the Emperor Nero, blood literally flowed on the streets, blood of Christians, as he persecuted the church and blamed them for the difficulties he had caused in Rome. I want you to notice a couple of characteristics or features of Babylon in these chapters. Notice firstly that she rides on the beast. That beast we've seen before in Revelation 13. It's the beast that comes out of the sea. It's the beast of political power. And how true is it that cities often rest on political power? And so the prostitute has great power and is not afraid to use it. Also, she has great evil. She sits on a beast that hates Jesus. When you notice that also that when her destruction comes, it's quick. Look at chapter 18 and verse 8. In one day her plagues will overtake her. Look at 18 verse 17. In 1 hour such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Would you consider Babylon's destruction? The Medes and the Persians took it in literally 1 day. I'm told that Rome's destruction in 410 AD by the Goths, they pillaged Rome and wiped it out in just 1 week. Consider how quickly the communist empire came down, completely disintegrated. Consider how quickly apartheid fell as well. When it finally fell, it was quick. It was complete. Its evil basis was completely destroyed. A city whose power and glory is based on the beast can fall very quickly. Notice also, will you, that the beast is often responsible for destroying the prostitute. The end of chapter 17 speaks about that. And evil often does that, doesn't it? It destroys itself. When you notice, finally, that we live there, we God's people live there, until Jesus comes. Just like Daniel lived in Babylon as God's person, so we live in the Babylon of this passage. And sometimes it seems like her evil is too great, her power is too mighty, and how will good survive? How on earth will honest people survive amongst all the corruption and wickedness and evil around it? How will the church endure when it seems to be getting smaller and smaller and everything else seems to be more popular? Well, the message of Revelation has always been, and especially in this passage, is this: all is not as it seems. Babylon is falling. It is always falling. And so let's come out of Babylon. Not literally, because we have to live in the city, don't we? But let's come out of her in terms of being like her. And so we get to live in the world, but not of the world. In Babylon, but not like Babylon. In fact, in Babylon, but like the woman in Revelation 13. Serving the Lord, faithful to Jesus, waiting for his return. All is not as it seems. Let's be the bride of Christ. And let's rid ourselves of that horrific prostitute called Babylon.